Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and operator of CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you want to call in your hand, check out the phone number in the description.
Yeah, 510, Jack.
Oh, 510, sorry.
Untapped, probably, I think we're like 2,400 effective.
Okay.
Heroes in the big blind with red pocket queens.
Okay.
There is the open UTG1 to $30.
Okay.
And villain right after him, next to act, makes it 85.
Okay.
Folds all the way to the hero, and hero makes the call.
I would
Yeah.
probably four-bet this spot a lot more than call.
Okay.
We've actually talked about this quite a bit on Top Section, and Key has talked about it, I believe, in his Fast Track series too. I mean, I don't like a road approach necessarily to poker. Some people play a four-bet or fold strategy. I'll tell you a guy that plays a four-bet or fold strategy. If you ever watch Live at the Bike, is that guy Art, right? The guy that is the WPT player there. I don't think I've ever seen him flat a three-bet. Now, are there times to do it? Sure. I don't know if I would do it, though, in this particular situation. It might have something to do with the caliber of players as well. I mean, I don't think calling is terrible. I just think that I'd be more apt to four-bet. But okay, you call.
Yep. I make the call. Opener folds.
Oh,
and
wow.
We go to a flop. Yep.
Okay.
Flop is 7, 4, 3, 2 clubs. The 4 and 3 are clubs. I think it's like a 7 of hearts.
Right, and you've got 2 red queens.
Correct.
Okay.
Hero checks.
Mm-hmm.
It's approximately around $200 in the pot, and villain bets 140.
Okay, so check, and villain bets 140. That's a pretty large bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what I said.
Well, you know what that allows you to do, though, is it allows you to, like, really only continue with the better hands that you have. You know what I mean? Which are your overpairs. You know, you can fold like ace queen and you can fold ace king, especially without clubs. So he's sort of letting you play kind of well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I block no clubs, so villain could easily have. I mean, it's a little less likely as ace queen of clubs.
Any history on this particular villain?
This is one of the reasons why I didn't four-bet this villain. I got kind of in a leveling war with him. A couple weeks prior, and I actually four-bet ace king of spades, and we were probably around 1,500 effective and 2-5, and he just ended up shipping. And I found out later that he had ace 5, and he shipped with it. So, I mean, this villain is definitely capable of making moves. Pretty good player.
Okay.
Kind of on the tighter side too.
Yeah.
So I just didn't, at this point, it was like, I think my third hand in, and I didn't really want to get in a leveling war with him immediately.
Okay.
So he bets 140 and hero makes the call.
Yep.
And we go to a turn. It's I think it's 7 of diamonds.
Okay.
Pairs the board. Hero checks. And villain puts a bet of 330 out there. And
so 330 into 280 into like 410, right? 280, 410, 450. So again, like a really big bet. So I mean, again, I think you have to call again with queens, and then you can evaluate like what hands you want to call like on the river with and things like that. Yeah, you probably don't really have sevens, and I mean the ranges here are tight, right, for flatting, a 3-bet. But you could have, if you're gonna flat here with queens, you might have like 8s plus here sometimes too, right?
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And I mean, at this point, I was like, I'm like, okay, this is an extremely large bet. I'm like, I did cold out of the blind, and he knows I'm somewhat of a tighter player. I'm not going to be in there wide, but, at this point, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to call a bet. And, I mean, I will evaluate on the river at that point.
So what's the pot size right now?
The
330,
pot, yeah,
660 plus 660 plus 280 is 940, and another say 200. It's like 1140, something like that.
mhm.
1150. All right.
Yep.
Yep.
And so I make the call, and we go to the river, and it is a queen of clubs.
I just want to point out something to you here.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously river pocket queens, but this is some stuff that I've been learning too recently. And we discussed this on top section one time. What if the river's a deuce, right? And you check,
Right.
and the guy bets pot. How do you determine, whether or not you call, right? Like, is it just a guts? Is it a guessing game? And I want to talk about MDF here for a second. MDF is, and this is in optimal play. It doesn't necessarily apply here, but if you're not sure, you can sometimes look at this. MDF is defense frequency. What did I say? Medium defense frequency. What did I just say? MDF was? I'm going nuts here. Minimum defense frequency, right? So the interesting thing here, even though the river is a queen, is that if you're gonna four bet off pretty much all the time with aces, and a lot of times with kings, let's just say for theory you always four bet aces, kings, and ace king suited here. Okay.
Okay.
Then queens, and let's say your range is 8 plus, eights plus, and like ace king offsuit, and maybe some like ace queen suiteds, okay, or something like that. If your opponent bets the pot here, if he gets you to fold 50% of the time, it's profitable, right? Like if he bets 1150, he's risking 1150 to win 1150. Now you're getting pot odds, right? Of 2 to 1. You need to be good 1 out of 3 times. But the MDF argument is that you actually are supposed to call with 50% of the hands that you end up with here on the river. So what are the hands that you fold on the flop and on the turn? Well, you're probably not going to call with ace king across the flop and turn. You're not calling with ace queen. You also might fold out 9s and below, right, to the turn bet. So now you're left with 10s, jacks, and queens.
Yep.
So you're supposed to call with half of those hands. Now those hands consist of like 18 combinations, right? So you're always supposed to call with queens. And then you're supposed to call with jacks at a partial. I don't want to get into it, but it has to do with the suits. But that's what MDF says about, like, if the river's a deuce, how do I determine whether or not I'm going to call? That's if you four bet off aces and kings all the time and ace king suited. But here the river is the queen of clubs, so obviously you hit gin in the form of queen. I mean, I feel like you're probably, if you think that this guy's like a bluffer or that he's going to be value betting, flushes, you have to check at the end here.
Right. Yeah, that was my question. Now I ended up checking. My question is are you ever finding yourself leading out here against like a higher caliber player in like a higher no limit game? Like ever.
Leading out on the river here?
Yeah.
Against a higher caliber player, probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, I at like 5-5 and a lot of 5-10, like if I'm up against a recreational player or a guy who I think is going to check back a lot of hands that he'll call with, I might bet, but yeah, like against a high caliber player, probably not.
Yeah. And then obviously if it's an offsuit queen, I mean, I'm sure you're going to probably maybe lead out a little bit, or maybe
I think
even more frequency to check.
I think an offsuit queen is even more frequency to a check. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could make a case that when a club comes and you make a flush, you're supposed to bet. So I think the queen of clubs is definitely more of a bet than an offsuit queen.
Yeah.
So anyway, so hero checks.
Yeah, hero checks,
yeah.
And he checks back. Dylan checks back, and I table my queens, and he's in utter disgust. So I'm assuming he had kings or aces, but I was just like, that was my question. Like,
well, I mean, the interesting
leading out.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing here is that like if you lead out, is the villain ever going to call with those hands?
That's
and then you'd have to turn. I mean, we can get into like all these levels. You would have to be turning a hand into a bluff, right?
right.
And your ranges are so tight because you call the 3-bet. Like it's just like you don't really have like ace 5 with the ace of clubs or some sort of draw that's missed here. So it's pretty tough. But like as played, I would probably check. Your hand just looks like an overpair, like quite a bit. You know, you don't really have a ton of suited hands here. So, anyways,
all right.
Thanks for the call, Dustin. Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out CrushLivePoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA200. Click on the link right there.